We have to put like audience noise in there, like cheering.
Yeah.
Maybe even some hecklers, and then we can make ourselves look cool and like dealing with it well. Like, oh, come on. Like,
One guy like, boo.
yeah. It's like, you don't mean that, buddy. Like, anyways.
Yeah, we'll just ignore it like pros.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I can just have those coming in and out this whole show. People are trying to interrupt us. You said you've been having a good week and things are finally cooling off in LA.
Yeah, things are cooling off. I'm getting ready to leave for tour.
Yeah.
I'm trying to chill out. I feel like I have like a little bit of travel anxiety that always pops up around tour, and my brain just starts trying to solve puzzles at night that
Mm.
aren't existing, you know? They're like problems that I'm making up in my sleep. So, you know.
Yeah, it's a long time to be gone, right? I mean, you're gone like over a month.
Yeah, this one is a little over 5 weeks, like
Mm.
almost 6 weeks.
Yeah. So that's a really long time to leave the remedies and the kind of like, um, not remedies, the routines was the art word I was looking for. That like, that, you can grow accustomed to and, being at home. I don't know how much you like work from home, but
Yeah,
is
I
that
mostly work from home.
okay?
So,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah. So,
it's nice to be in my own space a lot of the time. Yeah.
yes, I can imagine. I also like working from home and prefer it over being out in the world, but obviously tour offers like a whole myriad of experiences that you wouldn't otherwise get to have.
Oh,
And
yeah. I mean, once I'm on tour, I
yeah.
love it. It's just leading up to tour that always sort of sends me on a spiral of like fear and whatever, like I don't know, like I guess it's just because it's like a thing that is like so deeply out of control,
Yeah.
like you don't really know what it's like until you get rolling. But once it like, for the most part, once we're rolling, it's always good. So,
Yeah, I remember. Well, I mean, you and I met on a tour a couple years ago. It was
yes.
like Illuminati Hotties. Katie Kirby was the band I was playing in with some friends, and then Fen Lilly as well. So it's like a triple headline tour, kind of. Or well, you and Fen were headlining. Is that right?
Yeah, I think at the time Finn and I were co-headlining, I
Okay.
think probably at this point it would
Yeah.
have been more of like a triple headline.
Sure. Sure.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but, you know,
I bring that up because I remember meeting you and just noticing how like on stage you just were such an incredible performer in terms of
oh,
like not only playing your own songs really well, but just engaging with the audience in a way that felt like super present, and it was like you were in control in a way that the audience could, at least myself as an audience member, could like just like be like, finally, like she's got this, like we don't have to worry, because I
thank
always
you.
get a
I
little
appreciate
anxious.
that.
Yeah, yeah, totally. um
Yeah, I
and
feel you.
yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, I just keep rambling, but just to say that like both on stage and then off stage, you were like super nice to
Oh,
me. You didn't know me, and just as like an opener band, like you always made time to hang out with whoever wanted to like meet y'all and learn more about you. So I just thought that was super
thanks.
cool.
I appreciate that. Well, I love touring with y'all. That was such a good crew, and everybody was so fun to hang out with, and we did get a lot of like really good like time where all of the bands got to like hang out together, which I feel like doesn't always happen. Just, the pace of tour is so weird, and like depending on the size of the venue, like sometimes bands are just shoved in random rooms, and
Yeah,
I do feel like we got to actually hang out a lot and have a great time, like with not only the Fen and Hottie's crew, but also just like the Katie Kirby crew, and like
yeah,
all the opening bands that came along for that.
yeah, absolutely. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, after Katie Kirby's band parted ways from you and Fen, on that tour, didn't you have Pom Pom Squad open up?
Yeah, we took Pom Pom Squad, who again at the time like was an opening band, but
Yeah.
could have easily become a triple headline, or probably is at this point. And like I had made that first Pom Pom Squad full length,
Mm.
and um, and then invited them to come on the road just because I fell in love with hanging out with them. The whole crew is so sweet, also.
That is so cool. Um, yeah, and so maybe, I mean, it sounds like we are maybe gonna have Mia on as a guest later this week. That
Yes,
could be fun.
it'd be so fun.
I'm really excited to have some other folks on soon and just share the space with them.
So we can quit yapping about our own
Yeah,
music.
yeah, exactly. Just a little break from that, and I mean, I always love hearing about your music, but it's like I just don't want to talk about mine so much.
Well, you should because your music is great, and this album is like mid rollout, so it's really cool to have like the companion, like kind of as it's hitting the world, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the
Yeah.
fact it's like because I've known these songs for a long time, like several months, and worked on them so much. So I've just heard them so much. But you're right, like thinking about it from the perspective of someone who's never heard about it, it could be cool to accompany the music with
I
information
think
if you want
it's,
it. You know.
yeah, of course. I think it's so important now, also, like, press is such like a weird and fleeting thing, and like, I'm not really sure what all of it means anymore. Like, it's not really the way that people find music anymore necessarily. Some people do, but I think that there's a lot of like music press that is part of the horse and pony show, but is a little bit like maybe not meaningful. And this is sort of like a make your own press moment, I think, and kind of like a way to like really like direct your story behind your album, and also like connect more immediately maybe with people who haven't heard about the album or want to know more, or just are just finding you or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I'm hoping if there's any music nerds out there, this podcast could be of at least some small significance to them because I like love listening to podcasts, especially music podcasts, but also like comedy and stuff. The
And
reason
we are
that
comedians.
and we're like super funny, so it's kind of best of both worlds. Um, yeah, I started like almost laughing while you were talking, but it wasn't because of what you were saying. It was because I heard like a tingling noise and felt like a really light padding on my arm, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And it was my little bracelet like falling apart and like coming.
Oh,
So there's not that many. I only see a couple beads on the floor, so I've had
oh
this for a while, but it's
no.
just a fun little flower
You
bracelet.
have
So
to make a wish. If a friendship bracelet breaks, you get to make a wish.
well, yeah, I'm not sure it was a friendship bracelet. More, I just got it for myself because I thought it was fun, or maybe Carol got it for me actually. But R.I.P. We'll try to fix it. Also, my
Yeah.
wish for now is
Yeah.
that I can wear it again sometime soon.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Well,
love that.
so episode 3. This is episode 3 of SongDive. You always gotta
Song
plug. You always
die.
gotta plug the brand.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna go over tracks 3 of each of our albums. And
Yes.
last week we started with my album. So do you want to start with your album and third song today?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So that song would be "Throw" in parentheses "Life Raft" by Illuminati
Yes.
Hotties.
All of a sudden, I was like, "What is the third song on
Yeah,
this album?"
yeah. I always feel like, am I like an absentee parent for not knowing the track list like by heart of all the
Yeah.
records that I do?
Oh yeah.
But it
I feel
just,
that.
because then you have set lists and other configurations to memorize. So it's like, I don't know.
Yes. Yes. You get to reorganize.
Yeah. But I was just wondering off the top, like, I mean, I really love this song. It just is like such good vibes, and especially the choruses kind of just like soar and take off in a really fun melodic way. But I was just wondering if you know like where the inspiration for this song kind of originated.
Yeah. So, I worked with a producer named Ryan Hemsworth on
Oh,
this, and
wow.
Ryan is from Canada, Ottawa, I think. And I always think he's from Toronto, and then
Yeah.
I always invite him to Toronto shows, and then he's like, "Yes, that sounds so fun, but it's a 3 hour drive," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're
Yep.
actually not in this city." but I think, but this tour we're hitting Montreal, so I think that is much closer to where he lives, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he kind of like reached out about collaborating, and he's such a brilliant track maker, and he's kind of like a true like he's like a laptop troubadour. Like he really makes everything kind of in the box, or maybe like a little bit of live guitar, but he can kind of do it all, and has sent me stuff that he just works on in like a cafe or like whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and so he reached out about like a little bit of collaborating on some stuff he had laying around, but also stuff that he was working on for his own projects. And he sent me this instrumental. Um, while I was on, I don't think it was while I was on the tour with y'all, but I feel like it was like around that time, like end
Oh
of
yeah.
2022. But and I was on the road, um, and I just top lined it like in the van. Like I like free wrote lyrics to the track kind of,
God, I
and
love that.
and then made sense of them and edited them into like more of a story later, and just kind of like I don't usually get the opportunity to write like that where it's like I'm not thinking about harmony or really any of the like creation of the track, and I just was like singing over this thing. And I sent it back to him, and he was like, I love it, this is great. And I was like, I love it too. Can I actually keep it? So, yeah, and then we ultimately for the song we rebuilt a bunch of the track, but there's still some demo stuff that he just like played in a very magical way that remains.
Oh, that's so sick. I had no idea he was a part of this song. Um,
Yeah.
I've been internet buddies with him for a couple years. He built a track that I ended up top lining called Cast Iron. It
Oh,
was like a
cool.
part of like a single that I put out a couple years ago, but I had just had such a great experience working with him, and in like he does make the coolest tracks. So
Yeah.
that's so cool to hear.
Yeah. I love his style. It's very like it feels like nostalgic, but it's not like retro at all, and it is just kind of like amazing how much he can do, I think, just on a computer or like,
Yeah.
solo in a room. Um and like yeah, it's been really special kind of just like getting to know him and work on some things with him.
That's so cool. I'm also connecting the dots on. I have this memory of him sending. He and I've just traded music over the years, and he sent me a link. I think it was to some Body Sync unreleased music, which
Oh,
is like an
cool. Yeah.
electronic duo that he has. I think it was for Body Sync. And anyways, I remember seeing a track on the SoundCloud link that was like it said featuring Illuminati Hotties, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, that's wild. I wonder how they know each other. And like, little did I know you guys were collaborating in other ways as well.
Yeah, similarly, I think probably just internet friends at first, or maybe
Yeah.
he came to a show just to say hi. But I really love that hustle too of like
Yeah.
making stuff and just sending it to someone and being like, "Do you do you want to do something on it?" And like kind of taking a gamble on like either they love it and they want to use it, and then suddenly you have a cut on their record, or they send it back and you have something cool to work with on your stuff.
Yeah. I like that too, and I like that it like allows for. I like that you're not like talking about it too much ahead of time of like what will happen.
Hmm.
Because I love what, like vision casting, but also I definitely have found that like especially like creative people can get we like to talk and babble. That's why I have a microphone sometimes, and it's like talking about ideas is fun and fulfilling because
Yeah,
it can all be perfect in my head, but then in practice, like obstacles arise, like challenges
exactly.
arise, and so yeah, just leaving it open when you're collaborating with someone and just being like, I have it this far. Like, do you want to just like can I hand this off to you and see what you do? Um,
Yeah, it takes the pressure off in a really cool way.
nice. So okay, super cool. That he was involved in this song. I have this question written down. Oh yeah, kind of mentioned this, but I said there's such an amazing ethereality and floatiness to the song, which that wasn't auto corrected. Floatiness. So I guess that's gonna fly for today. How did you set about achieving such a glowing atmosphere? And now, of course, maybe this is more of a question for Ryan, but if you had a conversation with him about it.
I mean, definitely like I can just tell you kind of from where what I added as well as like
Yeah, please do.
what I know is in there. Um, I think there's a few things that really contribute to that. One is John Congleton and I redid the lead. I like there was a different lead melody, like kind of like instrumental lead melody
Mm.
that didn't quite like do it for me, and so we rewrote something and like played it on these sort of like pitch warped like droning synths, adding a bunch of like sort of like drones that just shoot over all the chords
Oh, wow.
helps. Um, and there's just a lot of like pitch movement that I think adds to like it feeling ethereal. Even in Ryan's stems, there's like an acoustic guitar stem that I tried to replace,
Yeah.
and I could not make it feel as cool. And I think it just kind of feels like tapey and weird and like broken in this way that like I couldn't really make better. Um, and so the synths is a big piece of it. The acoustic guitars is a big piece of it. Um, and then the melody I think is like really where the ethereal
Yeah.
and floating feeling comes from, is like I'm hanging on all these tensions,
Mm.
like the
Major
first note
seven.
of the chord. Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
seven, it's two, it's like all of these sort of like you don't really get the satisfaction of landing somewhere ever, um, which especially in the chorus, which I think adds to this sort of like loose and magical thing that is like, that's like what I love so much about like kind of early shoegaze or like
Mm.
dream pop world, where they're just kind of sending it on the seven, sending it on the two, sending it on the 11, like,
I love
kind
that
of
stuff.
making it. Yeah.
Or any like direct inspirations as far as the genres that you just mentioned, like any like projects or bands in specific that you can think of that may have at least subconsciously sent you
I
spirit
mean,
inspiration?
I don't have like,
It's fine if
like,
not.
yeah, like I kind of feel like it would just be like the regular ones, that would be name checked, like Cocteau Twins and Slow Dive and
Yeah,
I Bloody
yeah.
Valentine, and like um M MBV was a big band for me.
Sick.
And I've never really quite gone down that road, and I think now shoegaze is a little bit of like a hot button word that like maybe icks people a little, but there is something like quite magical about the records that Kevin Shields was making that kind of like captures that like unknownness melodically, and Belinda Butcher is just whispering over the top of like a mess of guitars, and
Yeah.
you know, it's an amazing sound.
It is. The mixes are super interesting. Like on a lot of their albums, and I'm not like super well versed in their sound, but I think that in general, like shoegaze to me seems like just like an exciting genre. Like whenever I hear something that's shoegaze related, like I don't think of it as like a dirty word at all or anything, because I associate that genre of music more with like a sort of like it has a sort of inherently cinematic quality, because you're
Hmm.
pulling away from like these are the lyrics and these are my feelings, and you're like, what
Exactly.
can we create that's a little more abstract and like broader strokes, and can we just like with instrumentals put you in a space, and I think inherently instrumental music is probably more often than not lends itself to the like cinematic qualities or
Hmm.
accessibility. Um,
Yeah,
so hell yeah,
100%.
that's sick. Okay, well, I was also, this is kind of a nerdier, like maybe more specific, technical question, but just about. I know, like, I feel like every song we've done so far, like both songs, I've been like, how do you do the vocals? I love the vocals, like, but like as we said, they're a focal point of the song, and I was wondering in the choruses especially, I can tell you have, multiple vocals going on. Would you care to tell me about like what that looks like in terms of, is it all actually you singing, or do you also like to employ like doubling, like synthetic doubles, like artificial doubles as well?
I think that this was all me. I'm not opposed to a synthetic double. I think that's a very cool sound. Um, but in this case, I think I did just like stack it up like crazy, um, to make it, to make that sort of whisperiness feel big and feel powerful and not get swallowed in the way that like a real shoegaze song might swallow the vocals. Um, and I wanted it to feel like dry but warm also, and I just did a lot of stacks close to the mic. Um, there's probably an octave below in some of the choruses. I feel that that is kind of a cool trick that I've used, as far as like, if especially if I'm doing something at the top of my register
Mm.
in like a sort of like head voice or like airy kind of thing, I'll just double it low. Um, and there's a few like harmonies that kind of come in and out. But yeah, that's a pretty heavily doubled, na- uh, naturally, not artificially,
Cool.
vocal take. And yeah, it was really hard to sing. For some reason, I tried it like three times or four times, I think, which usually I just know what I want for a vocal and I'll knock it out. But for this song and also I think Can't Be Still, I like had to reapproach it because I just felt like the demo was better, and but also the demo wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And I fell into the trap of like doing all the vocals, listening back to a rough mix and being like, oh
Oh.
no, like I'm like I'm not getting it.
It's admirable that you can be the one predominantly to be like, to make that call of like, oh, I'm not getting it, because I feel like after I do a long session of tracking, I'm so like swamped mentally and emotionally that I actually
Yeah.
don't know, and I just, the bias of having like the sunk cost fallacy of the time I
Yeah.
just put in, I'm like, it's got to be better, like I'm sure it's better. I mean, it actually doesn't sound as good, but the feeling behind the mood that I had was like more intentional, and like that will like carry through, I'm sure. And like like my partner or my friends like, the demo's better. And you're
Yeah.
just like, I don't want to hear that, but it's,
It's
you want the truth.
really, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm like not, I don't love like the mindset of first take, best take, but I do think there's something about like the way that you naturally sing something without thinking about it that probably is really good. And if you can get close to that, but a little better, like that's kind of the goal, I think, as opposed to like really emoting. Like, I feel like emoting on mic is such a precarious thing.
I think if I agree, it's because it's good in a sense that it's like, it's just closer to wherever you were coming from in terms of like holding that emotion, maybe like living in that experience. And the more, and sometimes the more takes you do, at least for me as like an amateur vocalist or whatever, like not professionally trained, not tons of experience, I tend to start thinking about the pitch and the timbre and things that, like, sure, that's like good to be aware of, but the focus starts kind of veering away from like, what is the heart of what you're actually saying, what does it mean, and it can become a little bit more of like just something else, other goals, and that might not be like ultimately what you want your song to be featuring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, such a fun song. Oh, I had a question. Okay, this is going back when you were talking about the pitch rising and falling, like pitch movement. You mentioned a melody that you retracked. I didn't know if you meant a vocal melody or if in the like post chorus there's like this. It kind of sounds like a slide guitar thing.
Yeah.
Is that what you were talking about? Or
Yeah.
okay.
There used to be like a different melody completely that was in those instrumental sections.
Oh,
And now it's what it is now. But
it is what
before
it
it
is.
was like, Ryan had kind of pumped in like
Sure.
some synth line that I lived with for a long time, and then when I got in the room with Congleton, I was kind of like, do you think we can beat this synth line? Like maybe this is not it. Like it's kind of not giving that ethereal, like kind of emotional sliding, thing.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I think we should just like try a few. If we can't get it, then like the line that's there is cool. And if we can, then let's just replace it with a bunch of different sounds.
Yeah, and it was so you tracked it like on synth then?
Yeah, like it basically what that it is, I think is like,
The people want to know what it is.
yeah, there's like we use that Mellotron that's like the fake one that they make that doesn't have any, it's like Mellotron brand, but it doesn't have tape in it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's maybe like MS-20 and um there's one more synth on there that I'm like picturing it and not remembering what it is. And then there is also the slide. Um, Congleton has this like guitar. It's like a banjo head inside of a guitar body, and it's like guitar strings, but it kind of sounds
Oh
banjo-ish.
wow. Yeah.
And then there might be one more thing.
Yeah.
It's a whole stack
Okay.
kind of
Cool.
things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for going into that. I'm like sorry if that's an annoying question. I just
No,
like
not at all. I love to know stuff like that from other people, and like if I had the session in front of me, I would just list off the track names, which sometimes are helpful, and sometimes I just write things like tree or whatever. Like I'll just name it something and forget what it is immediately. But
yeah,
usually it at least says like something more descriptive than keys.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, in keeping this episode maybe a little bit shorter. That's those are the questions that I've prepared. But if there's anything else you
cool.
want to share about the song or anything we missed, I'd love to hear.
I'm looking right now just for the stems in my Dropbox to see if I can actually find what it's called.
Yeah.
And if I can't find this quickly, then I'm going to move on.
No worries. I'm excited.
It is, yeah, it's not called anything. The stem is not called anything useful. There's probably like a Moog, an MS-20, a Mellotron, and then the slide guitars is what I'm guessing.
Fun.
Yeah.
Do you think all of those synths had that like? Well, the Mellotron doesn't have like a portamento thing, but like so they didn't all necessarily like bend on like a gradient towards the next note. That's
Yeah.
maybe more the slide guitar that you were talking about.
Yeah. There's also on the Mellotron, there's like a pitch knob that you can mess with, and I think I was doing some kind of like live automation on that, just like
So
playing
cool.
it, bending up, you know.
I love that shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all. That's what I got. Should we talk about Every Dog title track?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Um, so I'm addicted to this song. It's so good.
Oh, thank you.
Rightfully the title track of this album.
Really
Um,
appreciate that.
so my first question, I'm just gonna jump all the way to the middle of the song, which is like, what is happening between? I originally called this the verse and the chorus, but it actually is like I'm only calling it the chorus because it has the titular line in it. But it's really like kind of a B section, like a complete offshoot onto a new road for the rest of the song. Um, but is it like what's going on? Like how are you changing orchestration? What is there a key change? Like what? Why does it feel so? Like, when I'm
Yeah.
listening, I'm just like, whoa, yeah, that makes sense. But then, like, when I was listening critically to ask questions, I was like, whoa, I'm dumb. Like, what is happening?
Well, that's good that it only came later. Any confusion? Yeah, no, I mean, thanks for your kindness towards it, and yeah, there is like a drop off point to me where it's kind of a point of no return. So there's like two halves of the song, the way I think about it. The
Yeah.
first half is maybe like a minute and a half long, and it feels more like verses. Um, but if so, those verses are kind of just like going. It's not static, but there's not a lot changing. Mostly just lyrics, I guess, pushing the narrative forward. And then I wanted to have something where it's like now the instrumentals are going to change, and so you feel like you're being like delivered to this new place. You've arrived in a new place, and so that's kind of what we were hoping to create with the that second half of the track. It sort of sits in a weight lyrically and hopefully harmonically that like or instrumentally that kind of honors what the lyrics are leading to, and like yeah, like pouring like the direction of everything as far as the lyrics go.
Yeah. Is it in a different key?
No, but the chords are all different. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. It's not, which isn't to say that. What I mean by that is that all the like chord voicings, I started using halfway through. I start to use all different chord voicings. So even if the same like number chord reappears, it's going to be in a different context, and it's going to have different like voices on it, I guess.
Is it like like what's the word I'm looking for?
Like modulation.
Uh, Not modulate. Yes, is that the? Like if it's like in the same key, but it's like a different like scale, like
Oh, like a mode, a different mode.
modal. Is it modal?
Modal. I don't believe so. I think it's actually. I'm trying to think of every other element, and because sometimes there's like a tertiary atmospheric element that's doing like a.
Yeah.
It has some relation to the root that like does skew the like mode, and therefore your like emotional perception. But I'm pretty sure this is all the same
Oh.
mode. I don't know what it is. Um, yeah, I need to touch up on my modes.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
mean.
yeah.
So is
It's
it?
just the vibes are different though. Like I know what you mean.
Did you change like how much of the instruments that you're playing in the first half stay in the second half?
Um, well, for one, the drum kit sound is totally different. We like turned the
Yeah.
snare on, and I don't think we mic'd it differently, but it's like processed differently. Like I had it on a separate group in the session and whatever. But um, yeah, everything changes. Like even the fact that there's an acoustic guitar, like a nylon string, driving most of the song. We experimented with like double tracking it more and like panning it out and turning that down and letting there's an upright piano that comes in halfway through the song, like in this dropout period, and there's like more there's like lead guitars that are kind of like Radiohead inspired, I feel
Yeah.
like kind of like in Rainbows Radiohead inspired. um yeah, wait, sorry, I literally forgot the question.
No, that was you were answering it. Just
Yeah,
what changed,
yeah,
like
what changed?
what was the orchestration shift?
Yeah, it changed, and there's a section where there's like a big instrumental like space, and there's not singing, and that was like that's credit to my girlfriend Caro, because when I first played the song for them, just on acoustic guitar, I got to that point halfway through the song and said like every dog has her day, and then I just went right through to see the beach before they plan it all away. I just like I just like carried through, didn't think much of it, but they were like, I love that so much, I almost want to just sit with that one line, so could you just
Whoa.
like give some space? And I was like, well, I don't know how I would without going through like the whole chord progression. And then they were like, well, maybe that's okay to do. So
Ghost production credit.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I tried to credit them on the album like I don't know who would read that, who that even goes to, but like,
Yeah.
as like, yeah, there were so many instances in which their feedback and suggestions were like absolutely taken, and like implemented. And I appreciate that so much because they definitely like, I think it adds a really unique quality to the song, that maybe that middle part feels a little more meditative or something.
Mm,
Yeah, so I think
that's cool.
yeah.
Is further on orchestration in the first half. Um, the drums are like tuned to the song, right? Like even the kick drum is kind of has like a bass note.
Yeah, I think so. And I, man, it's wild because like so much of how I feel like I've learned so much about mixing and production like since working this album and like through the process of working on it. But one of the things that really brought out a lot of harmonic content was like from the drum kit was the Sound Toys Devil Lock on
Oh
like a
yeah.
parallel send, like so sending it to a different, sending the drum bus to a parallel like bus or whatever, that, and then it had like Devil Lock on it, which like severely it's called an audio destroyer, but you know it adds like a lot of like distortion, and then somehow I all of a sudden I could hear the pitches of the drums, like the snare for example, like it rang out more. I think just because it was like that signal was being so like leveled that it brought, I don't know, you know, it like compressed it so much, and so that way like the pitches just like started singing, and I thought that it just kind of emphasized what we were hoping to get out of the drum kit in the first place by turning the snare off. So
Cool.
yeah, so I hope it kind of like you can hear that when you
Yeah.
listen
Well,
to
I
it.
was wondering if you could walk me through how you orchestrated this like opening riff. Like it has kind of like regular rhythm guitar and then the instrumental bits in between the verse, in between the lyrics, I mean, are like arpeggiated in this really cool way, like Sufjan-esque way where it like feels like many guitars equal like one part. And so I'm curious if you wouldn't mind just walking through like building that part.
Yeah. Um, I I just remember like kind of like making the song was just on our couch in this apartment, and it started with guitar playing and just moving through the first couple chords, and then ending the phrase with something that felt it. The first couple chords feel like they're like ascending, and then it ends with a descent, and so I it just felt kind of fun and sounded cool to not only like end up on a lower note and a lower chord, but to like precipitate like some notes, so it actually felt like it's like dripping down or
Yeah.
uh yeah. And so that's where that came from. So it actually, yeah, it's all played on one guitar, which is it gets to be a little distracting live between singing and playing that, but luckily that part isn't over singing. They're just like really close together in time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no chance I'd be able to play that
Yeah.
ever live.
Yeah, and then it's
So
like that thing like,
props.
well, thanks. It was like that thing we were talking about of like, you know, when you're like almost like thinking about the wrong thing when you're singing.
Yeah.
Like yeah, stuff can get that way if for me if the guitar parts are too busy and involved, and then I like thinking of singing is like this. It's almost like when you're drumming, you have different limbs, like the limb independence. Different limbs are
Hmm.
performing different tasks. Like sometimes singing and playing feels like that, where you just have to like maintain these like independent things going
Yeah.
on. Trying to
Can
do
you
that.
sing and can you sing and play drums at the same time?
I don't think I've really ever done that live. And not a ton on my own, but it's something where every now and then I'll just try, especially like if I'm in a lesson or something, I'll try to like harmonize with the song while playing. And it works for, you know, simpler beats and simpler vocal parts. but as soon as the rhythm of the vocal is also pretty complex, I find that that's when things start to really like suffer and kind of like blur together, you know. Anyways,
Totally.
yeah.
I could never do it personally.
I'm sure you could. It's
It's like, well, like you said, the limb independence. There's so much of that playing drums, and then singing is like a fifth. Like if you're imagining you have four basically
yeah,
things
yeah.
you can be doing at the same time on drums. The voice is like a fifth piece that like I've tried to do over and over again, and it just is like it breaks my brain in half. And like I don't know why I can't do it, you know.
Yeah.
And then every time I see people do it, I'm blown away. I mean, obviously there's like, you know, there's some very famous drummer singers in music
Mm-hmm.
history, but like even like Jess, who plays in Alex Leahy's band,
Oh
like
yeah, yeah. She's doing the harmonies. I
can
know. So good.
really crush it
Yeah.
while she continues to play drums.
Yeah. She's awesome at that.
Yeah.
I was gonna. I wanted to ask you then. Have you ever like when you go to try it? Have you ever noticed or had an experience of like your initial couple attempts are actually you get better results, and then the more you like start trying and start thinking about it, it all of a sudden starts to fall away, as if you're like, look what I can do. No one could be around, but like it's almost to yourself as an audience, and the minute you start spectating yourself, it like falls apart. Or is that not
Totally.
relatable? Okay.
No, yeah, 100%. I mean, it's so much easier to like do like I feel like there's so many songs I've written where I just will like play it and sing it once and I'm like that just makes sense and then I'll like go to practice it for like a live show and I'm like how did I do this? I actually have no idea how to do this again, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, and I asked that question because I'm interested in that that experience of having like like a relationship with your limbs and your body that is not really intellectual in any way, because it doesn't involve
Yeah.
any critical thinking or even much awareness, but instead it involves this interaction between like whatever part of your brains are generating the music, keeping time, all that stuff, and like knowing
Totally.
how to play the stuff, and also your body just doing it. So I don't know. That's why I feel like I'm confident that like you or anyone else who like plays instruments, it's just like adding another thing. So it's
Yeah.
just all in time. Um,
Right, right. Well, I have one more question for you
yeah.
on this song, which is, you know, feel free to, I guess, disclose as much or as little as you want, but you know, listening to this one, I feel like you are almost like omniscient narrator
Mm-hmm.
instead of like the language isn't like as internally focused as it is sort of like instead of like I'm not really feeling you as a character like experiencing like I feel like there's a detachment in the voice of this song in the like like whatever the lyrical content from the story. So I'm curious, like you know what I mean? It's like almost
Oh
like
yeah. Yeah.
voice of God, voice of narrator type of thing. And so I'm curious, like what was happening in your life, and like what was what was the lyric approach here?
Feeling like God. No, no, I totally know what you mean. I think I was trying to make something that was like where it wasn't just first person, because since that is so much like the default when I go to do stuff, when I go to like sing about something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, just trying to find a way to like rephrase things through a lens of like, this is what happened for you, character. And this is like, yeah, just thinking about like someone else's experience and just trying to like detail what that was like either for them or what it meant for the narrator. I think I'm definitely a part of the song, but less so in a first person sense. And there is some first person, but yeah, I wanted to kind of like zoom out a bit. And this song, it involves like looking back in time a bit, as like most do, but it's looking back at like a decent through with some distance. So I hope that that's reflected in the like the the like yeah in the lyrics.
Totally. Yeah, it's wistful. I do feel like there's just sort of like a thing of like that you are like sort of like hoping about like you're like having what's the word I'm looking for? You're like basically like not really experiencing the story, but you are describing it, which is cool.
Thanks. Yeah. Hopefully, I would really like to, I don't know, like grow in the. I would love to like spend more time, in those sort of like directions, or like when I'm, singing, playing guitar. I would love to try to find ways to like experiment with more character-driven stuff, and yeah, even like solely from the perspective of other people. I just feels like that's like what would be fun and challenging, since it definitely doesn't come as naturally. So could be
Yeah.
fun. Well, yeah, thank you
Cool.
so much for asking. Yeah, those are really thoughtful questions, and I really appreciate your kindness about it all.
Of course. I love this song. It's out now. Um, and it's one of the two that are currently out from this
Yeah,
record.
yeah, there's been two singles, and then like the album comes out September 27th, so pretty soon we're gonna do, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna do like a third song like right before the album comes out, which I'm
Awesome.
excited for. So yeah, that's really soon. Also, this week I'm super excited to have some guests on, like we were talking about.
Yes.
Tomorrow, I think you guys have met before. The guest tomorrow, um, Maddie Ross. Um,
Yeah.
so exciting.
It's gonna be great. I think that Maddie's got a song coming out soon, like around now. I guess maybe next week or
Okay.
the week after, also. And so she's gonna be on talking about it. It's her return from a bit of silence from her artist project. So that'll be really exciting to just hear like where she's at. And I'm gonna pretend like I don't know anything about
Yeah.
the songs, but also I do have questions because I can't possibly know everything, right, about the
Yeah,
song.
absolutely. Yay, I'm so excited. Okay, cool. Well, I will see you tomorrow.
Yes, sounds good.
Thanks so
Thank you,
much for
Allie.
meeting up to do this today. It was really
Yeah, of
fun.
course. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. See you
All
later.
right. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.